Hi everyone. Thanks for joining. And I do really hope that all of you are healthy and safe during this time. Very quickly, I'd like to thank the IxDD team for sparing a good 30 minutes for Mega and myself to tell a bit of story about a banking transformation through Genius, BTPN Genius, which is considered one of the first digital first banking experiences in Indonesia. And so I thought that would be quite interesting to share. Very quickly, my name is Vilya. I am one of the co-founders of 62. We are a product innovation studio based in Southeast Asia. We have team members in Jakarta and a few other places as well. And here with me today, I have Mega.
Hi everyone. I'm Mega. I'm from Jakarta and I'm the UI UX lead in Genius.
Very cool. Okay, so before we start, I guess just to give you guys a bit of context on today's topic. So our team at 62 last year actually had a very close collaboration with Mega and her team at BTPN. And that project was actually to revamp the Genius project, the Genius app. And we crafted quite a number of meaningful new features. And most importantly, along the way, our team actually learned quite a lot of interesting facts about the product itself and its inception and the transformation that it brought to the Indonesian banking scene. And so when we were planning on the XDD talk, we thought that telling the story and its transformation would be quite cool for the wider design community. So yeah, so Miguel, why don't we start by maybe you telling a bit more story about what Genius is for those of people in the audience that are not familiar with the product.
Yeah, okay. So Genius is a digital bank. It's a full service banking that is accessible through an app. And Genius is owned by BTPN and a group of SMBC. And so because it's a digital bank, there's no process that requires users to go to the branch. So we also have several features that can help users to make their life easier. Not only basic stuff like transferring money or paying bills, but also users can open multiple saving accounts, multiple virtual or physical debit cards, foreign currency accounts, and etc.
Very cool. So like when you were listing out all of these features, in my mind, I was thinking that the Indonesian consumer these days are probably very used to a lot of these functionalities and capabilities already. But I wanted to take us back to the early inception of
Yeah.
Genius, which is 5 years ago. So you guys launched in 2016, and so the inception was probably in 2015,
Yeah.
right? Um, so the early days of Genius, like with BTPN being one of Indonesia's most prominent and longest running government-owned banks, I can imagine that the complexity is immense in the early transformation internally, right?
Yeah.
So maybe could you tell us a little bit more about what the banking and fintech scene actually looked like in Indonesia back in 2015, 2016?
Yeah. So in 2015, there was no digital banking yet. So people mostly do their banking through branches or ATM. Back then, there were some banks who already have internet banking, but with a token or mobile banking. And some banks also have e-money, so electronic card to pay offline transaction like paying toll or paying parking. But there was already also e-wallet, some e-wallet. One of them was GoPay. Back
Mm.
then, OFO was also not there yet, so people were just used to want GoPay only.
Wow, okay. That's very, very interesting. And so I can imagine that the what the Indonesian consumer are used to today is quite
Yep.
different than what it was 5, 6 years ago, hey? So can you tell us a little bit more about what the consumer behavior looked like when it comes to the banking needs or like money needs in general back then?
So one of the things that is interesting back then is that users were really dependent on branches and also the ATM. So back then, when they want to transfer money or they want to pay bills, they have to go to the branch. And We even have an insight, or like we quoted from the users, that they go to the ATM and they do their bills and they find it convenient back then. So they were really dependent on ATM. And
Yeah.
what also a lot of people did was they didn't want to mix their money in one bank account. So they have
Hmm.
several accounts in different banks for different purposes. So they can separate the saving accounts and their expenses. Back then, it was also hard for people to shop online if they don't have credit cards. So they have to apply for a credit card, and if they're not eligible, they cannot use any card. Like many people back then didn't know what digital bank is.
Right, right. And so, um, so with those existing behavior, how did your team or the BTPN team in general decided to build Genius? Can you tell us a little bit more about what specific user segmentation are you targeting, or specific user needs that you're trying to fill the gap in? Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so BTPN back then, or the image that we had, was a pension bank. So it was a bank for
Mm-hmm.
retirements. And even though we had several line of businesses, but the image was there as a pension bank. And we also want to
Mm-hmm.
expand our business. In 2015, we saw that actually Indonesians were ready something digital, and they were because
Mm-hmm.
the usage of internet, of digital app or social media is really high, and it's getting even higher. And so we could see that the adaptation of digital is really high for Indonesians.
Mm-hmm.
And we also did some research, and we found out some pain points that user found back then with the conventional bankings. One of them was
Yeah.
about going to the branch. So of course, this is a real
Mm-hmm.
hassle because they have to step out of their house with their bank books. They have to bring it, otherwise they cannot do anything with their bank. And
Yeah.
they have to queue for really long, and then they have to fill out the form, and blah blah blah. And also, when they have the card from the bank and it's lost or stolen, back then they could either go to the branch and or call. And back then we even had to go to the police first to report the stolen or lost card, and then we go to the bank again.
Mm.
And even when calling, it's also really takes really long, and it's costly, and sometimes it's not picked up at all.
Yeah.
And it's also like for the fees was also not transparent for many banks. So many people didn't realize that they were charged some fees like transfer fee or admin fee or tax or whatever. They didn't realize that. And
Mm-hmm.
lastly, it was also difficult for them to manage their money because, as I said before, they tend to open several bank accounts for different purposes. So it means that they also have to manage them. And if they also have e-wallet or e-money, they also have to manage, like the money is really scattered everywhere. So those were
Yeah.
the
Wow.
pain points that we found back then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. And when in the early creation of Genius, how did you translate a lot of those pain points and business and user insights into version one of Genius? Like, what are the top functionalities or services that were available in version one of Genius that were answering a lot of those
Yeah,
needs?
there were several features that we had for the first Genius, but some that I would highlight here to answer the pain points were for the opening bank account. It can be done fully digital in 10
Mm-hmm.
minutes with the app, and they can do the KYC online with video calls. And users can also open multiple saving accounts in Genius, so they don't have to have different bank accounts anymore. They can manage it from one app, and then with Genius they can also apply for Visa debit cards, which means that they can also transact online or shop online, and they can have several
Mm-hmm.
of these cards for different purposes. And when these cards are lost or stolen, or they are not sure where they put it, they can do like a temporary block
Mm,
just for some time until they find it, or they when they're sure, oh, it's really gone, they can do a permanent block
yeah,
and the new card will be sent to them.
got it. Wow, like I keep hearing online and digital and less physical and branches. It's like you guys were ready for the pandemic even before it happened.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Um, so I wanted to I'm quite curious actually. As with any transformation, as in any changes to the way things work, there's bound to be some positive or negative feedbacks and responses from the market, right? So tell me a little bit more about when you first launched it. Like, what was the market reaction like,
So
or the consumer reaction
yeah,
like?
so actually, when we first launched, it was like people were really excited because this product or
Hmm.
Genius answered a lot of the users' pain points back then. So they saw that this is something that they need, but at the same time, there are also many people who were not used to digital banking yet because they simply didn't know what digital bank is. They thought it would be, oh, it's just the
Mm-hmm.
same with another internet banking. Of course, for changing, it's not easily acceptable. We cannot expect
Yeah.
users to accept it right away. So there was still a
Mm-hmm.
challenge in that at that time.
Yeah, for sure. I know for sure, like back in 2016 when I was attending the launch party, I was really excited as well. And it looked like it was going to change the game, and it did. Cool. So I wanted to touch a little bit more on the internal transformation that were happening at BTPN. So obviously we've been talking about the external
Yeah.
transformation, but BTPN has always been known as the bank for retirement, right? A pension bank. And I can imagine that transforming quite a button-up culture to something that is more approachable to accommodate the existence of Genius, which was quite a huge undertaking. So can you tell me more about that, about like what the transformation internally looks like?
Yeah. So back then, we also realized, of course, if we want to transform the market, of course, we also have to transform our culture and our way of working, right? So some of the
Hmm.
things that we changed back then was about the mindset. So from bank centric, we transform it to customer centric. So instead of focusing more of the bank interests, we focus more to solve users' problems and users' needs. And there's also change in the culture. So back then, most banks were consist of bankers, and with Genius, we transform it into more diverse and flexible talents. Such as myself, I'm not from a banking background. Also, for
Hmm.
80% of the Genius staff is not from a banking background. Some came from creative agency, consultant, scriptwriter, even novelist. So it was really diverse, and even to the smallest bit, like about what we wear. So back then, bankers mostly wear shirts or batik, and we didn't
Hmm.
put that in our culture anymore. So we could wear t-shirts, sorry, t-shirt, jeans, sneakers, and this even influenced other line of businesses in BTPN. Yeah,
Hmm.
at first when we did this, they saw us, wow, they don't wear batik, and along the way until
Yeah,
now, they also don't do that anymore. Also about
that's
the
awesome.
office space, from cubicle that is more stiff, we have a more open space office now, and even for like the bosses, they don't even have their own room. This was something
Hmm.
new for them too. So this is
Yeah.
something that is changing in our culture. And then we also
Hmm.
change our way of working from waterfall to agile. So we adapt the chapter and squads as well. And then something that Genius also encouraged to the staff is to have the Genius values. So we have 5 Genius values that is encouraged for our day-to-day work. The first one is customer focus. So we are enforced to listen to our customers' needs, and then we are also enforced to be an owner. So we're not just doing what we are told, but we have to be proud of what we do. We care about what we do, and then we also encourage to be bold. we should voice our concerns, ask questions, ask for help, and voice our
Mm-hmm.
ideas no matter to whom, to our boss or our boss's boss, it doesn't matter. And then we also
Yep.
adapt agile way of working, as I mentioned before. And then we also do continuous learning. So we are enforced to continually improve our skills and be more adaptable to changes.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Um, Speaking of continuous learning, um, one thing for sure is that Genius has been around for five
Yeah.
years, right? And so I'm quite curious to hear more about the learning in the past 5 years that actually led to the revamp that we did. And obviously, with the pandemic hitting us hard, there's bound to be quite a lot of challenges from all fronts, from collaboration, from the changing user behavior. And so I wanted to dive deeper into that. But first, could you tell us a bit more about what are the key learnings that you've and your team had in the past 5 years, and what are the changing user needs that exist?
Okay, so something that we also change is other than the key learnings, we also change the way people see banks. So back then, before
Mm,
Genius launch, most of the banks have similar communication approach, which is more stiff with photos. And then with Genius, when we launched, we put on our communication was more fun and colorful, witty, with the illustration. That is also changing, like how most digital
mm,
banking is launched today, also using the same or similar approach to us. And some of the
mhm,
we've been learning for the past 5 years is that people are already used to convenience. So people expect everything to be more instant. And this is something that Genius is also continuing to improve. So this is something that we see as a challenge, and we try to accommodate these needs.
mhm. Yeah, sounds good. And do you see that the pandemic actually changing a lot of the user needs just in the past, what, year or two now?
Yeah, definitely. So we also did some research about this that actually people prefer to use digital banking in this pandemic rather than going to
Mm,
ATM and branches. So with that said,
yeah.
actually Genius was already ready to
Hmm.
accommodate this needs even before
Yeah.
pandemic happened. Also, when talking about users' behavior, there are, of course, some needs, and Genius also try to accommodate these needs with our features that we already had and that we launched after the pandemic. So, for example, people tend to shop online more because they cannot go to shop offline. So Genius can try offer users to pay with the Visa debit card or with Genius Pay that is connected to the e-commerce. And
Hmm.
user also, when they shop offline, they prefer to use contactless payment. And with this Visa PayWave, Genius Visa PayWave, they can also do that, or with the QR payment, user can scan from a Genius app. And users
Mm,
also prefer to do food delivery with GoFood or GrabFood. And with Genius, also can top up the e-wallet from there. And then there's also something that hit hard for some people with salary reduction, or some people even
mhm,
became jobless. So many
mhm,
people realize that they need emergency fund. So there's an increase also in our saving features. Some people also feel that they need to have an additional income, and they open business. And Genius can also help them by having, so we have also a feature, it's called Genius for Business. It's to separate the user's account for personal use and their business. We also help them in that side.
mhm. So there's a lot of learnings, also a lot of responses as well, from the BTP Genius team to respond to those changing needs, right, over the years. And so I wanted to shift the focus a bit to the revamp as well, which is another transformation that are happening for the product itself, right? Second
Yep.
transformation. So what prompted the re-architecture and the revamp of the product?
Um, yeah, over the past 5 years, we learned that there are some things that we still lack of. Over the last 5 years, we also introduced more and more features. So the first problem that we found in our old version of the app was that it's not scalable because we use the hamburger menu. So this hamburger menu has benefits. It means that users can just go to one place and they can see all the features there. But the problem is with this approach, user needs to memorize the name of the feature in order to access these features. And then the
Yeah.
menu is also getting longer and longer. So this is something that we see as a problem, and we want to
Hmm.
change that into a bottom navigation approach, which is already common practice, and it's meaning that it's also intuitive for the users. And with that, we can also separate the feature into key screens, and we divide it into their functionality rather than their names. And
Hmm.
then another thing that we want to improve is also the usability. So we want to make it even smarter and easier for user to access our features. And then we also
Hmm.
want to update our visual style that was already built 5 years ago. So we need something that is fresh and more modern. And
Yeah.
something that we also see that what we do actually is to listen to our users. So over the past 5 years, we heard a lot from our social media, from our surveys, from the app ratings, and we also have a community called Co-Create. They also give us some feedback about the UI UX, what can be improved there. So
Hmm.
that is something that makes us want to do the revamp in our app.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that struck me looking at your list there are the points of a personalization, but also the look as well, right?
Yeah,
Like on personalization, I remember we were having quite a lot of conversation when we were working together around customization versus personalization,
yeah,
right? And so that I thought that was pretty cool to highlight in the and maybe you can talk a bit more about that as well. That in the Neo revamp, we've started adding in quite a number of those meaningful tidbits that could help the users. And on the look itself, yeah, you might want to talk a bit more about that because obviously that's quite a bit of a big task for us, right?
yeah,
To align, to stay true to the Genius brand by keep and at the same time keeping the consistencies across the multiple product lines as
yeah.
well.
About the look, it was something that was
Yeah,
uh, a challenge, but also something really exciting that we did. Yeah,
yeah.
so when the older version of Genius, it was more like the style was more stiff, and it wasn't really translating the value of the Genius brand. So we tried to swift that. So we want to make the look is more modern and more fresh, and also accommodate to the brand. So what we did back then was we had a lot of brainstorming and workshops with the branding and communication team as well, to
Hmm.
find what is actually genius, right? So that is
Yeah.
something that was also interesting, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I do remember those meetings very clearly, and it's pretty cool that we ended up coming up with one visual identity that will work for multiple product lines, like for personal, for business, for priority, and all of those still feels like genius.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So. just taking in more on the personal level, like what were some of the highlights for you, like on this revamp?
So one of the things that I also find that is really unique in the revamp that we came up together was about the personalization. So back then, with
Hmm.
the old app, it offered more about customization, which was mostly done by the users. But
Yeah.
the drawback from that is it only work well if the user is already familiar with the feature or when they know what they want, what they need. So we thought that it was better if we could bring more personalization, which is done by the system or by AI to give them insights of what they actually can do or what they can improve with Genius features. So that is something that we also
Hmm.
introduce in the new revamp, and it will be improved more and more later on.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
great. Like for me personally, if you don't mind, like I remember one of the highlights for me was actually the auditing process of going through every single screen, every single functionalities
Yeah.
in the previous Genius app to make sure that we're not missing anything and that so that the user is not missing anything at the end of the day, but still try to find a way to kind of streamline the process, cut any duplications, any inefficiencies in the design. So that tedious process was pretty memorable
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
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 Um, yeah, very cool. And so I wanted to bring us to the last section here. Obviously, 5 years later, there's a lot more other players in the Indonesian fintech world, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought was pretty cool is that all of these players, including you guys, are all moving towards the same goal, which is to allow for financial independence in the Indonesian consumer, right?
Yeah.
But from your perspective, like, where does the redesign or like the revamp today put Genius amongst all of these other players?
So because Genius was the first digital banking out there, so we definitely had a head start in this. So we
Mm-hmm.
already have more features, and we were the one who introduced digital banking to the market. So we have benefit in that. But at the same time, because it was 5 years ago, some things are already outdated or some things
Yeah.
prone to be changed. So with this revamp, I am now confident that some things that were lacking back then could be improved as well now. And it's really exciting to see that there are other digital bankings that is coming, and more are coming, and we can see that we have like the same goals, and but they some of them also have different approaches. So it really also changed the way people see the benefit of digital banking in Indonesia.
Mm-hmm. And give more options to the end
Yeah,
users as well,
exactly.
yeah, which is great. Hmm. So we are running out of time. I think we can talk about this forever,
Yeah.
really.
Too
But
bad.
to end and to yeah, and to quickly summarize for the audience here, I think it's pretty cool to see the Genius journey, right? You guys started really to fill a gap, right? A gap of need that you saw in the Indonesian consumer. And then 5 years later, you continually add value by transforming yourself again, right, to respond to the changing needs. And so that's I think that's pretty cool to
Yeah.
see. I know that when we were working together, like we had a few exciting functionalities like in the works. And can you share just like one or two tidbits on what's coming up next for Genius?
Yeah, so one of the feature that is already coming soon in the app as well, and that we're working together is the investment feature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's one of the
Yes, yeah.
exciting thing that will come. But for the bigger picture, actually, what is coming from Genius is Genius wants to help user to be even more financially healthier. So we try to put that value
Hmm.
in whatever we do, like the features, the new features that we are planning, or the enhancement that we do. So uh,
Yeah.
that is one. And the second would be the personalization that I was talking about before. It's
Hmm.
also coming, and it will be really exciting.
That is awesome. Okay, we are really running out of time now. So thank you so much, Mega, for the past 30 minutes. It's been really fun. And I do really hope that it's been useful for you guys at the audience as
Thank
well.
you.
Yeah, thank you. And stay safe and have a good one, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.